Welcome back, guys. We're currently leaving Saga Prefecture that we visited in the last episode and are heading to Nagasaki Prefecture's Sasebo city for the night. Sasebo is home to a pretty big American Navy base. Speaking of which, there it is. Along with the base, something else here that screams America is hamburgers. Arguably the best hamburgers in Japan are said to come from Sasebo. So let's find out if it's true.
Not today.
There should be a burger shop here somewhere. Let's see. No? After wandering through a seemingly endless shopping arcade in search of this almighty burger, I became desperate. I needed to use any method I could think of to find this heavenly nourishment. That's when it hit me. To find a sacred burger, I must first become one with the gods. I could now feel it, sense it, almost taste it in the air. When, suddenly...
A little bit of French fry. We're getting close. This way, let's go.
So, how does this burger stack up against others that I've had?
Okay, let's eat, finally.
Does it excite my taste buds like no other? Have I now reached the enlightened state of nirvana?
That's good.
Today, we'll head up farther north in Nagasaki Prefecture to a place called Hirado. Hirado, like most of Japan, is filled with so much history. I could spend days here and make several videos on only this one place, but there's not enough time this trip, so I'll just touch on a few things. A lot of international trade took place in Hirado back in the day, starting with the Chinese and Portuguese in the 1500s, followed by the Dutch in the first half of the 1600s. Having these international trading posts meant that a lot of things from overseas were first introduced to Japan right here in this city. One being new kinds of food. Some examples are refined sugar, asparagus, sweet potatoes, and not really food, but tobacco. Christianity also entered Japan for the first time right here in Hirado. Speaking of Christianity, only 1% of Japan is Christian today. For several hundred years it was a banned religion, and survived only as an underground movement. It wasn't until 1853 when laws loosened up and Japan could finally start building Christian churches, and believers were allowed to practice Christianity openly. In the West, it's a common sight to see an old, historic church, but not so much in Japan. Most churches in this country are modern, simple buildings. Since traditionally styled churches are such a rarity here, I decided to check one out. Constructed in 1913, this neo-Gothic style church was eventually relocated to this location in 1931. It's known today as the St. Francis Xavier Memorial Church to honor the Catholic missionary who first introduced Christianity to not only the people of Hirado, but to the country of Japan back in 1550. From this position, we can see the church's steeple in the background with Buddhist temple buildings in the foreground. This mixture of Western and Eastern religious buildings all sharing the same view like this is pretty rare in Japan. One by one, the international trading posts in Hirado were either shut down entirely or moved to another area due to disputes over religion and/or trading practices. This building here is known as the Dutch Trading House, and it's where the Dutch did their trading from until they were banned to an artificial island in downtown Nagasaki City called Dejima in 1641. Later on in this video, we'll get a closer look at Dejima. Before heading to Nagasaki City, there's something else I'd like to check out while we're here. Japan's samurai warriors were rarely ever Westerners, but one Western man who did manage to become a samurai was this guy, William Adams, or as he'd later be called by his Japanese name, Anjin Miura. I talk all about Anjin Miura and why he's so well known here in Japan in an earlier video I made called A Ride to Miura. Feel free to check that out if you want to learn more about him. There's a famous novel that's loosely based on Anjin Miura called Shogun. This story started from a novel in 1975, which led to a miniseries released in 1980, and then finally to a TV series that came out with its first season last year. I read the novel, loved it, and enjoyed both the miniseries and TV series, so to finally see Anjin Miura's final resting place feels like I'm visiting the grave of a celebrity. A quick final stop before leaving for Nagasaki City is this place. What is it? It's Anjin Miura's house that's been turned into a cafe. Might as well pay our final respects to him by enjoying a tasty snack in his old home. This is the kind of Japanese sponge cake first dipped in egg yolk, then in boiled molasses, and finally coated with granulated sugar. Known as kasudosu, the name comes from a combination of Spanish and Portuguese words. This dessert was once only consumed by the ruling clan of Hirado hundreds of years ago. Lucky for us, today the general public can also sink their teeth into it. Due to this sweet's long history in this area, it's an appropriate treat to end our time here in historic Hirado. Okay, now off to Nagasaki City. So it's time to talk about a darker topic. Nagasaki. When most people hear this city's name, it's usually connected with the horrible events that took place here in 1945. This city, along with Hiroshima, are the only two cities in the world to have had a nuclear bomb dropped on them in a state of war. Like you'll find in Hiroshima, there's a museum here in Nagasaki dedicated to that terrible time. I've checked it out, and it's just as shocking as you can imagine. But they built it to remind people just how awful war is. Not too far from the museum is Nagasaki Hypocenter Park. As you can probably guess, 1,650 feet above this area I'm walking in now is where the atomic bomb called Fat Man was detonated all those years ago. Another place that was in the main blast zone is known today as Nagasaki Peace Park. Inside the park is this famous statue. Created in 1955, the Nagasaki Peace statue symbolizes a number of things. The statue's right hand is pointing towards the sky to remind everyone of just how dangerous nuclear weapons are. His left hand is extended out to represent eternal peace. His eyes are closed in prayer for all the victims here. His right leg is positioned in a meditative pose, while the left leg is well planted on the ground, symbolizing the need for people to stand up and help the world. This part of Nagasaki's history is definitely bleak, but they recognize it and have done their best to move on from that grim time and instead focus on peace and compassion for humanity. Now that I've addressed its dark past, let's move on to more of the positive things that Nagasaki has to offer. As promised earlier in the video, this is Dejima. This area used to be a small peninsula in Nagasaki Bay. The trading post that would eventually be called Dejima was completed in 1636 through a series of construction projects that eventually turned the peninsula into a fan-shaped artificial island that was linked to the mainland with a single bridge. Originally built to prevent the spread of Christianity, this once artificial island is where the Portuguese traded from for 3 years until they were banished from Japan altogether in 1639 due to religious conflicts. The Dutch then did their trading from here from 1641 to 1858. An interesting side note is that back when Spain had conquered and ruled over the Netherlands, the only place in the world where the Dutch flag was still flying was right here in Dejima. Eventually, this place was the only Japanese territory open to Westerners during Japan's isolationist era, a period that lasted from 1603 to 1868. Since 1868, extensive land reclamation has merged Dejima Island into downtown Nagasaki City. Luckily, before all traces of this trading post disappeared forever, Dejima was designated as a Japanese National Historic Site in 1922. For a number of reasons, it wasn't until 1996 before major restoration work had finally begun here. Since that time, the city of Nagasaki has been painstakingly working on restoring Dejima to its early 19th century state. There's a river along the front today, but there are plans to restore the water levels on all 4 sides of Dejima and to once again make it an artificial island with the same fan shape that it used to have. Many of Dejima's buildings have already been meticulously rebuilt, and there are ongoing efforts to rebuild the rest of them in the coming years. Today, the residence and warehouse buildings in Dejima take on the role of museums, giving us a glimpse of what life was like for the merchants who traded here back in the day. A beautiful example is this one here, which is actually the biggest building in Dejima. Restored in 2006, this is the chief factor's residence. This was the office and residence of the Dutch chief trader, and it also served as the reception area whenever Japanese officials and feudal lords came. With a lot more work to do yet, Dejima's restoration project is expected to be 100% completed in 2050. Along the banks of Nagasaki's Nakashima River, the same river that flows on the north side of Dejima today, are a number of souvenir shops, old merchant buildings, small restaurants, and cafes. Crossing this river is done by the help of a number of small bridges, many of which are made of stone, but there's one in particular that I'd like to show you guys. I'm currently walking on not just the oldest stone bridge in Nagasaki, but in all of Japan. Built in 1634, this bridge is known as Megane Bashi, or Spectacles Bridge. Why spectacles? If you check out the reflection of its 2 arches in the water, I bet you can see why. There are so many different food options to try in Nagasaki. Since we're in the Chinatown neighborhood now, one signature dish here that's popular with both locals and tourists alike is something called kakuni manju.
I got kakuni manju with cheese.
This is based on a Chinese cuisine that originated during Japan's Edo period. Kakuni manju consists of stewed pork cubes wrapped up in a wheat flour-based dough called manju. Wrapping the cubes of pork makes it easier to eat, and it's said that this style both impressed and shocked people all those years ago when it was first introduced. Once it cools down enough to actually eat, it tastes pretty good. In the next and final episode of this Kyushu miniseries, we'll take a walk around Nagasaki. Tour a famous park with historical homes inside, take in some beautiful views from the top of a nearby mountain, and hang out with this guy. In the meantime, I'll continue burning my mouth on this kakuni manju, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Until then, take care.